welcome to Gary's Roundtable. We'll talk about everything imaginable, some things that aren't. Brace yourself. All right, thank you for tuning in to Gary's Roundtable. This is Season 1, Episode 3. I want to thank my guests, Cale Warner and Linda Alvira. We had some fascinating, very intelligent conversation, and it was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy it. If you're interested in being a guest on Gary's Roundtable, then feel free to reach out. Without further ado, I present Season 1, Episode 3. Thank you.
Hey, am I the first female?
Yes.
Awesome.
Not
Groundbreaker.
right. It was not not intentional. Just
I know. That's cool.
I take volunteers, so
Yes.
and it just happens. I don't know. I think men generally like discussing total destruction of the world more.
It's a testosterone thing, yeah.
That's right.
I don't know. After teaching preschool, I'll tell you, those towers get kicked over and smashed by girls really well.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go down the road where it's like after teaching preschool, hell, let the world burn.
I'll tell you, after teaching that, it's a good thing I already had a kid because I'm not sure I'd
yeah. There's effective birth control for you.
Right. No shit.
Exactly. That is the best birth control in the world. Throw you in a room for those guys. Oh, I don't see how these women go out and have kids after that and teach there. Really, it's very productive, or not, I suppose.
All right. Well, this is Gary's Roundtable. Welcome. I have a couple of very special guests today, Cale Warner and Linda Alvira. Say hello.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. And today we're going to be discussing artificial intelligence as a possible end of the world, end of humanity, total destruction of everything good and wonderful in the world. So a very uplifting topic. We're going to keep it optimistic. And
Oh, butterflies and daisies.
that's right.
They're just dead.
Right. They're still there. They're still butterflies and daisies, even after they're dead.
Right.
They're just cybernetic daisies. That's all.
I mean, after the first couple, this is actually one I was really looking forward to because I find this a completely fascinating subject, being a sci-fi nerd.
Yay.
Yeah, and I did a little research ahead of time on this too, and I found out a few things that are, actually scarier than the idea of you have you first think of artificial intelligence, your mind immediately goes to Skynet, or
Right.
complete, an artificial intelligence that somehow takes over and dominates us and subjugates us, a la Matrix or something like that.
Yeah.
The scariest thing is actually happening right now, and it's going in an entirely different direction. We're just going to become obsolete, I think.
That's certainly one of the potential outcomes. It's a scary thing to think about. Just but
It'll come in a way we have no idea of, and that's what's scary. We'll think of all these scenarios and it won't be one of them.
It won't even be one of those. I honestly, and from my own heart, I see things like this happening, and I see the trends to them already. We've got the problem that we have is that we want to give up the control. We as human beings, we want to trust the computers because they're computers. How could they possibly be bad? They're neither good nor evil. They simply are. But at the same time, we're actually completely giving up our own individuality or opinions on them. We've got and I think it was called Compass. I did a little bit of research on this. This system is in place right now. It's an AI system that is in use in I want to say 13 different states right now, and it's with the criminal justice system. Now this is an AI. It's an algorithm that will take an individual, you input their stats, and it will determine whether or not they are likely to jump bail, whether they're likely to reoffend. So that judges are actually using this system right now to determine bail amounts, whether bail is even allowed. Parole officers use that in order to determine whether this individual is likely to offend, and if they're likely to offend, will it be a violent offender? And everybody wants to trust this. Why? Because it's a computer. Computers can't possibly be biased, but at the same time, you've got, they've actually done studies on this. Independent groups have done studies on this system and found that it is much more likely to find an ethnic group, an African American or something like that, to be likely to offend than it is a white. And it's more likely to be wrong in both directions, depending upon the race of the individual. So here we have an AI that has been given, the data itself, the system is racially biased. So of course the algorithm is going to come out because garbage in, garbage out, but everybody wants to trust this system. And we don't even think about that. We just trust it blindly. We've got AIs right now that are determining whether or not we're qualified for a home loan or, a car loan or something like that. And we're just trusting these systems. Why? Because they can't possibly be wrong. That's the scary thing for me,
I don't think the computer can be necessarily wrong in its calculations. The problem is the data. All they do is process data.
Yeah.
But now the criminal justice system being the prime example of warped data. I actually was working on this. We just recently moved about 5 months ago. And during some of my quarantine downtime, I started doing shortly after the George Floyd thing. I started doing this just for personal reasons, a little bit of a research paper into, actual like criminal justice stats. And what I found was absolutely alarming was the percentage. I mean, all the crime statistics we have are based on accusations, arrests, and convictions.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, and there are so many unsolved crimes. I mean, it's insane how many violent crimes don't get solved. So there's this whole gray area here where all we know, all our crime stats tell us is who got caught doing it. And those people that got caught doing it are in densely populated areas for the most part with a higher number of police. So it's only natural. That's where people are going to get caught more. Urban centers, and then they're going to get convicted largely based on their financial status.
Right, exactly.
If you can't afford a good lawyer, you get your court-appointed lawyer, he's going to talk you into settling because they're employed by the same system. Not saying they're not ethical or whatever, but it's just the nature of the beast. They're employed by the same system that is perpetuating the whole thing. So you've got, the cops and the district attorneys, the prosecutors, and the defense attorneys, court-appointed defense attorneys are working for the same government.
Well, yeah, not only that, you've got public defenders who are he's got a briefcase full of dockets that he has to deal with. He's not going to be necessarily giving you your money's worth because you're not paying him. Of course, he's going to try to be efficient and, look, dude, just take the deal. We're not going to win this. Just take the deal.
Right. Because he gets paid the same, whether you,
absolutely,
whether you go to jail, go to trial, or whether you're guilty or innocent, he's getting paid by the system. So it's kind of, that's a little bit off, but it really is all about the data set. And if you don't have good data, then you can't, it doesn't matter how good your calculations are. If you don't have the right numbers fed into the calculator,
then exactly.
It's not going to come up with the right answer. It's going to come up with the right answer based off the wrong information you gave it.
And the real scary thing, I'm sorry, go ahead, Linda.
I was just going to say, it could also be set up on purpose to be wrong. Someday people could,
certainly,
slip in things that they want. So what's the Tom Cruise movie? And, you're arrested before thought crimes.
Minority Report. Right. That's a classic.
That was a great movie. I love that movie.
Yeah. Even
only that, with artificial intelligence too. I mean, the very definition of artificial intelligence is a program that writes itself. Now, inherent in that is the fact that once the narrowband AI, the AI that is specifically designed to perform one task and do that very well. The problem is that by the time it gets adept at that task, even the people who originally programmed it could not tell you what's going on. They don't have a clue what is happening, how it's reaching these conclusions by the time it does that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then we get robots.
Human knows what's going on in this AI's brain.
Right, because the robots are making the robots, and that changes everything.
Absolutely.
Well, and just I seen something to the effect of that, with the technology we have right now, an artificial intelligence, supercomputer has the capacity to learn like 20,000 years of human knowledge in a week. So how do we
imagine that once they get quantum computing online? They're already building quantum computers, and that computing power will go up 1 billion-fold when that comes online.
But the scary part is that we're all totally dependent on basically on the people programming the original version of the AI to make sure there are effective safeguards in there, and that they don't build a machine capable of evolving past its base programming.
But it's got to, probably.
Well, it has to be able to adapt and evolve in order to perform its main function. Now, I don't know how. We as human beings are excruciatingly prone to making mistakes.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I'll vouch for that.
So, and even the smartest person, even the best coder in the world would probably be like, yeah, I fucked up a line or two here or there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mess up one on your HAL 3000 or whatever, and guess what?
Yeah, and as it's continuing to write its own programming after it, as it's evolving, then it's it's based upon corrupt code to begin with, which just gets multiplied down the line.
Yeah, it's like the electronic cancer. The bad, gene.
Oh, I like that term.
That's beautiful.
If that's not coined, it should be. It's the electronic cancer. I love that.
Okay, give me credit.
There you go.
When it gets famous.
Got to put the little copyright symbol every time it just pops up on the screen every time somebody says it. You get paid 3 cents.
Electronic money.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. There was another, and this is kind of along the same lines. Again, it's the AIs that we cannot possibly comprehend what's going on. Even the people that are making them can't comprehend. There was a particular AI, and this may have been 10 years ago. I can't remember for sure, but they made this AI it was basically pattern recognition. So it would look at pictures and it would identify what that picture is about. Now, keep in mind, it's not human. It doesn't look at the whole picture like we would. It has to examine each pixel and how it relates to the pixel next of it and build a picture from there so that it can determine what it is. And they one of the things in particular they were showing, it was like a picture of a husky dog, a husky. And it came back and said it was a wolf. Well, they're like, okay, how could it make this mistake? It's not a wolf. So they ran it again, but this time they built in an algorithm that would identify the pixels that this AI was looking at. And it turns out it wasn't even looking at the subject of the picture. It was looking all at the background. So you had a husky. It was definitely canine, but it was in the middle of this snowy landscape that, trees and snow and everything like that. Now, based on that criteria, it said, well, wolves are out in the wild, so I'm going to say that this is a wolf. And they had no idea. It was right 99.9% of the time, but that one time that was wrong, they realized that, good God, how could you possibly be right if this is what you're using as your criteria? It's scary.
Well, it's like making it electronically, the old joke about the blind man and the elephant.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's a snake.
Oh, right.
So they'll just one thing wrong and then they'll blow up the world.
Well, I don't even think I even think like narrow scope AI is kind of scary. Once we get into AGI, artificial general intelligence,
right,
that's a whole nother ball of wax. But even limited. You ever heard of that? I think it's the paperclip paradox or something, where basically you create a machine to make paper clips. That's what it does. It makes paper clips. That's all it does is make paper clips. It doesn't have a conscience. It doesn't have a stream of thought outside of making paper clips. It has one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to make paper clips. Now, if there's a kid standing in the way, does it care? Does it care? Its purpose is singular.
Right.
And without the ability to go, whoa, 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 you know, I can't crush this child, making a paper clip. That's, I don't know. That's kind of how I, what I worry about. Right. What are we? I mean, to this thing, what are we? Are we an anthill? Like you think about ants, don't really think about ants,
Mm-hmm.
They're in
Do you
your
remember
house,
time-
you'll kill them without second thought. If you got to if you're building something, say you're building a shed out in your backyard, there's a giant anthill. Sorry, you're dead because I want the place you're living. I just don't know if they don't empathize with other beings that aren't like them, then it doesn't even have to be malicious or destruction of humanity. It's just,
well, that goes two ways as well, because of course we as human beings, that we can't empathize with them. Now, I mean, you're getting into the difference between artificial intelligence or artificial sentience, but I mean, if it is possible to create a sentient computer or a sentient algorithm, then you get into the whole is that a being? Is that an individual, and does that individual have rights? I mean, we expect them to be able to sympathize with us when we are completely incapable of sympathizing with them.
Well, not to mention the what they would view as decades of abuse at the hands of human beings.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're slave labor.
Or sex bots. I mean, let's face it. We especially as a male individual, if we're going to create a being that even looks remotely human, the first thing that into any man's thought is going to be, can I have sex with it? So of course, and absolutely, yeah.
And it's this beautiful Asian woman. I think it's Japanese.
I've seen. Or I've heard about that. I've never heard that.
Backtracking, Cale.
Yeah, the blow-up ones just aren't the same, right?
Oh, no way. No, I know what you're talking about. I've never heard that before in my life.
But eventually it's going to need rights. What if they start making them, for children? I mean, children's size. So some guy buys it. Is he still a pedophile? But it's not real.
Yeah, I don't know how to. Yeah, I've heard that argument as well. I don't even know how to reconcile that with my own moral compass. But it's a robot, but it looks like a kid. But is that effective? Is that right? I don't even know.
But he's not hurting a real child.
Yeah, and in this day and age of Me Too and all of that, how, if you've got an AI program that is specifically designed for this one purpose, how do you even ascribe consent to something like that? How can we say this program or this being is doing it out of its own free will when you've designed it to give over that free will?
Well, it's going to get into their rights, and that's why some people don't want them to have any human features, because it's easier to keep them, slaves, because they don't look like us.
Then you don't empathize. Yeah, that's a good point.
The more they look like us, the more people like me probably will say, they need some rights. So
that's a angle I was not anticipating.
Wow, this one went right off.
This is great. It's great. It's really. I mean, I don't even know where I come down on that. Thinking about
let it grow in and look what happens.
See,
there's a whole other bonus. We're sitting here. We come down here and sit down and expect to talk about the evils of artificial intelligence, but then now we're thinking, well, wow, maybe they have rights. Maybe they're beings.
Well, ultimately, was one thing. Kind of the overarching theme here from the first 3 episodes of this podcast is the destructive nature of humanity. It's it's the faults of human behavior that ultimately leads to the destruction of the planet and the end of the world and the, annihilation of us as a species. It's not, I mean, if we build we built the nuclear weapons, which is a perfectly capable means of destroying ourselves.
Right.
We build artificial intelligence, which is another, whether it's through obsolescence or, robot uprising, whether it's through the sex bots going like, whoa, whoa, whoa. No means no. I don't know.
How about some foreplay there, buddy?
Right. Nobody asks about my needs.
Yeah.
You never bring me flowers.
More oil, please.
Take me out on a date once in a while.
Yes, there are other parts of my body that need lubricating, okay?
Whoa. Yeah. Keep your oil can handy.
Right. Oh, but that's messed up. I'm gonna be that's
enough. Yeah,
that's gonna be jiggling around in my brain for a week.
Well, in anticipation of this, you had talked about the movie of iRobot, which I've always refused to see because I saw the previews because I love the book. So I was skimming through the book last night, and I don't know if you remember, and I don't know if the movie did this, but it goes through the growth and evolution of the robots and how some of them, didn't make it because they did develop too much of a personality that was not compatible. One developed religion and another mind reading. But at the end of the book, they're starting to panic because the humans don't have to do anything. Everybody will be employed. Everybody will have food, and they're wondering, what is this going to do to humanity? And then they start to notice little mistakes are going, oh, look, this business over in China went out of business. Like, oh, wait, there's not enough food over in, Brazil. Is the machine failing? And I don't know, did the movie get into that at the end?
No.
Really? Oh. Anyway, the culmination is that eventually they realize, this is, Susan Calvin, of course, realizes that the machine is doing exactly what it needed to do based on the 3 laws. And it would allow humans to come to harm if the machine kept providing things to be perfect, because no creativity or growth could come to humanity unless it made mistakes and ran out of food and stuff. So now there was this, God machine that is allowing the humans to make mistakes so that they will create new things. But at the same time, it's overseeing them so that they'll never really do anything horrible like blow themselves up. So that's what they ended up inventing unknowingly. So that was the end of the iRobot.
Yeah, no, the movie was a little bit more like basically there was a lot of Asimov and themes in it, but it wasn't a direct but the idea in the movie was basically that the only way to protect humans from themselves was to pretty much imprison them. What the AI did is send out all the robots to basically round up all the people and kind of put them into prison camps. Because,
no way.
Yeah, because they were gonna. That's how it basically justified following the three laws. It wasn't protecting a person; it was protecting humanity.
Okay.
The movie definitely, and I've never read the book, and it's been a decade since I've seen the movie. And that's one of the greatest tragedies of my life that I've never read Asimov, but it definitely seemed to go more towards the other direction. Asimov, seemed to, at least from Cliff Notes and what I've read through pop culture and everything like that, seemed to view the robot as more of a noble character, if you will, whereas in the movie they were the complete. They were the devil. They had to be destroyed.
I knew was a reason I didn't see that movie. I could tell from the previews they screwed it.
It was Asimov always, he kind of had the like the rosy colored glasses on when it came to the robots.
I just
Mhm.
looked that up. That was 1950 when that
Right.
book came out. That is just amazing to me. That and again, I feel like less of a human being for never read Asimov. I've read Heinlein, I've read Card, I've read Philip K. Dick, many
Right.
many of those, but I've never read Asimov.
How about Bradbury?
Oh yeah, Bradbury. I
Yeah.
don't know. I like Bradbury. He's more of a fluff to me.
Well, he's that hardcore. Yeah. What about Harlan Ellison?
Harlan Ellison. Actually, I've never read Harlan Ellison, but I'm fortunate enough to read a lot of interviews with him. I think as a human being, I think he's a very interesting individual just to talk to. I'd love to sit down and speak with Ellison.
Yeah, he came to Ann Arbor and did a talk in a big auditorium, which was interesting. But Asimov, I believe, also created multivac. Do you know multivac was, again, a growth of small personal computers into robots into a large AI, and everybody could connect into it through their own programs and their own computers. And I think it got to the point where, like, I don't know, I don't remember, but like you had a button on your arm. Anyway, it was easy to access him, and humanity had grown so far that multivac was all they knew. Nobody remembered anything else. And again, if I remember, it's been like decades since I read it, but there was a point in humanity where they didn't know where they were going anymore because they were spread out amongst the stars. And somebody asked, I think it was somebody asked again if there's a God or something, and multivac thought about it, for 1,000 years or something. And finally, the end of the book was that multivac, thought, and then multivac announced, "Let there be light," and that's the end of the story. Right. Yeah.
Wow.
So, I
Moment
have
of
not,
silence.
Right. I have not. I was tip of the iceberg is pretty much all I've read a lot of Asimov. I read some, I can't remember the guy's name, Halperin, James Halperin, I think. He had this book
sounds familiar.
called The Truth Machine, which was it was a pretty great moral work, but it was basically everybody got a machine that would tell if they were telling the truth or not.
Ooh.
And except for, of course, one person was able to cover up one lie that led to the creation of the truth machine, which is it was kind of wonky, mind blowing. Yeah. Like, that one was pretty good, but
one of those time paradox things.
That's one of the things, back to the subject of AI, and you kind of touched on this when you were talking about multivac, Linda, was, necessarily one of the more, at least I view it as one of the more positive issues of AI, without getting too Elon Musk or anything like that, is that there is the concept that, artificial intelligence and artificial beings, in all likelihood, may be the only possible way that we could travel outside of this solar system. You know what I mean? We're already populating this solar system with robots. We've got rovers running all over the surface of Mars. You know what I mean? And, maybe that actually, artificial intelligence and artificial beings, if you will, may be the only possible way that we actually extend beyond our own solar system. It may be the next point of evolution for us as a race.
That's a good point.
It's depressing.
Well, beyond that,
yeah, it is.
Just, like just for solutions to problems on our own planet, if you have something that's capable of thinking at a level 20, 30, 50,000 times, faster than we are, when it comes to figuring out how to solve problems, we gotta have some ticking time bombs all over the place, mostly of our own creation. But every time something new comes up, you've got 8 different people with eight different ideas on how to address it.
Right. Not to mention the 12 people that are just saying, man, that's fake news.
You're right. Right. That's I mean, if you don't believe there's a problem, you're not going to put any work into really addressing it. If you don't think it's that big a deal, you're not going to put a lot of work into it. But these could be, artificial intelligence could be a neutral data processor that actually comes up with real solutions, where everybody that's in charge, everybody that's in power, as far as governments go, they're not scientists. They're not the best and brightest among us. They're just people that convinced other people to vote for them.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of them, like I say, there's science denial is pretty rampant out there. A lot of people don't want science getting involved in their government.
Well, yeah. But at the same time, you've been preached for years about the evils of technocracy,
Right.
And now they use the technology to voice their anti-technology.
Exactly.
Yes, they're on YouTube screaming at us and
broadcasting over broadband or wireless about the dangers of 5G.
Right. But if they don't have it, it's not going up to that satellite to bounce back to the untouched natives in New Guinea who need to hear the word of the Lord. So.
Right. Well, it's better than sending people there to infest them with disease.
Yeah. Well, at least those last two guys got murdered. I mean, it's bad, but still. See, I can do this in the world really well. I mean, I felt so bad for them.
Yeah, I can tell.
I'm a peaceful person. So, back to your only robots going out to outer space. What I was, of course, being the slight rebel against what I can't do, my thought would be after so many decades or centuries of only robots going out, they should be pretty good at it. And with all of our progress in surgery, such as my artificial knee, etc., what would happen? Would we be able to do it if we became more cyborg?
Well, there's definitely, and again, with the, and we're getting into a whole idea of fringe science, we're kind of brings me back to Elon Musk and his cybernetic companies that he owns. It's amazing because I just saw this morning where it's probably something that he did a while ago, and I just happened to see it, where they're designing cybernetic implants. They to interface between the human mind and computers. This is the cyborg. This is the next generation, and that's the biggest thing is and there's a huge and I don't know if you've got this as one of your future subjects, Gary, but it's a good one too. There's two different thoughts between human, the idea of technology advancing human evolution. One is cybernetics, where there is, technology interfaces with us as human beings. There's also the idea of genetic manipulation that's going on right now too, to a scary degree. But and that's the same thing again. Yeah, possibly there is the idea of being able to use technology to enhance our organic makeup, or but at that point you get into the entire question of at what point do we stop being human?
Right.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Well, that and basically every scenario that's out there involves putting the essentially the brain of a human being, the stupid animal brain of a human being into a superpowered robot.
Well, how could that go wrong?
Right. Yeah, we got an upright.
Wait, I think I've seen this movie.
Right. Yeah, let's go ahead and put the brain of this slightly advanced ape into an indestructible metal exoskeleton, and let's see what happens.
Or not only that, I mean, the possibilities may not be with cybernetic enhancements as well, but as the technology and human cloning and everything like that maybe that, the automated machines get us there in a cryogenically frozen state, or as simply as DNA that is later, revived in the Dog Star system or Alpha Centauri or wherever it is that we're going.
Right. The old genetic Noah's Ark.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they keep all that stuff. What is it in Sweden or something, where they keep the store of seeds and everything in real life? Yeah.
They have basically the DNA, the genetic
Cows.
material of essentially every living thing that we know of on the planet, or every living species that
Do they have humans?
Yeah.
They do.
Well, not actual humans. They have like DNA and things like that. They don't have any actual animals in there.
I know they have but do
they have the DNA. So
how do you build it from DNA though, if everything else is destroyed in the world?
Well, that's
a good question. You got to have some sort of viable embryos or stem cells or something in order to imprint this DNA on and create the clone, I assume.
Well,
I don't know. I'm not a geneticist, so I don't even understand the process.
But the aliens that are capable of faster than light speed travel and have the technology will be able to recreate us, whether they choose to or not.
Yes, but are they truly aliens, or are they the otherworldly equivalent of cyborgs or artificial intelligence as well? Maybe they were created and they're nothing but robots,
or the evolved seeds of us that we sent with the robots to populate Alpha Centauri.
Right.
Either way, they're aliens. They didn't come from Earth.
Well, somebody will end up worshiping them, and other people will kill them. So
yeah, that's pretty much how it's gone since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
You ever see that? It's a little meme, but it has a flag with a duck, like a duck face, and then the other one is it's tilted so it looks like a rabbit.
Yep, that's brilliant. Absolutely,
and it's like
brilliant.
the rabbit worshippers are fighting the duck worshippers, even though
yeah, it's a little Mexican standoff. They're each standing there ready to kill the other for the same sign. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yes.
Back to the end of the world. There was
keep us on track, Linda. Good job.
Yeah.
Yes,
sorry.
Thank you.
It's that preschool teacher in me. Sorry, guys. Yeah. But
do you feel like a preschooler, Gary? I do.
I do. When do I get cookies and a nap?
Oh no, at my preschool, that was not healthy enough to have. You could have cheese, There was this book, and I don't remember all the stories, but it was a collection of short stories. But I love the title is, it was just Not with a Whimper, but the premise was they were all about the destruction of the planet and how does Earth end. And it's essentially not with a bang, but with a whimper.
Right.
And it was all stories about the end of the world. So it covered a lot. I don't remember much about it, but
yeah, that's
it was pretty.
I don't know, and I don't really know if I don't know if artificial intelligence would be the thing that wiped us out. Cyberdyne, Skynet style. I don't. I really don't expect that, but our own obsolescence and boredom is probably more likely. Once every job is replaced with a robot. And
my brother-in-law, Brad Hendricks, I got to give him credit for this. I don't know if it was original or if he heard it from somebody else, but he said that to me one time. What happens when we all become basically all of our jobs are replaced by AIs or robots or anything like that? And his hypothesis, or at least the way he presented it to me was his hypothesis, was that we would all become basically content providers. We'd all be blogging and YouTubing and podcasters, which is, incredibly apropos given the fact that we're talking on a podcast right now. But
I'm just ahead of the game a little bit.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, the idea that we may evolve into a race that our only jobs are to entertain each other.
Right. There was one where some story where you wanted leisure time, and that's what humans are always trying to do. Better ways of farming, better ways of teaching, every way to make it easier, which doesn't seem to work yet, but that's the idea.
WALL-E.
So pretty soon,
Pixar movie WALL-E.
We are all replaced, and there's nothing but leisure time for humans. People are painting, doing music. Oh God, maybe this was a Star Trek episode. But that's it.
I'm sure it was somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Humans start getting really bored. It's like, okay, we've been painting for 3 generations now. What are we going to do?
Yeah, idle hands.
I don't remember how it is.
No, idle hands are the devil's playground.
Oh, yeah.
They say.
And it's true. What will they do? They'll start eating each other's young or something.
Just, I don't know.
Oh, that's a cheerful thought.
Well,
well, eventually they might just blow it up the world for fun.
What is going to be the value of human life at the point where we have nothing to offer society? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, not in like a personal way, but in a a big picture way. Like everybody is an expense and a drain on the system at that point. And the scary part for me about the AI stuff is it's not necessarily going to replace, a guy digging a ditch. It's not necessarily going to replace a guy doing plumbing or any sort of manual labor, but doctors, lawyers, if you got something that I mean, seriously, if you're facing a trial and you have the option of having a machine that's capable of learning 50,000 times the speed of a human brain and responding and reacting and knowing all the laws and all the case laws, or you've got, the guy, which one are you going to pick if you're?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, if I'm facing a life sentence or something even worse, of course I'm going to choose my lawyer. I would like Data from Star Trek, of course.
Right.
Yes.
Or if you're going for major surgery, and you have, shaky hands, Bob over here holding a scalpel, or you've got, a machine that's essentially far less capable of making a mistake. I don't know. It's just, but the job.
That's an amazing thing. And that was another thing that kind of struck me as I was researching this is all, when you think about it, in the past 20 years, probably 20 or 30 years ago, we saw this big uproar over robots in manufacturing. You know what I mean? They were replacing minimum skilled or unskilled labor a lot. Now what you're seeing with AI is it's actually replacing the higher level, higher skilled jobs. Basically they're the data crunchers. They're the ones, the programs in the AI are doing the accounting, the banking, the decision making. So you're seeing, a shift from manual labor being replaced to now actual intellectual labor, if you will, being replaced. You know what I mean? What happens when everybody's replaced?
Right. Well, the complaint, when they talk about like the minimum wage increase, people say like they're just going to replace all the workers at McDonald's with an automated, a self checkout.
Of course. I mean, why wouldn't?
But nobody ever thinks about. They always think about it in terms of those people. You know what I mean? It's always that this group, that group.
Right.
But nobody is really thinking about the big deal is you have a surgeon. You have a doctor, a radiologist, you have, countless extremely well-paying jobs. And that person now, after spending 8-12 years of higher education to become this possible, $1 million a year sort of job. And now he's unemployed. She's unemployed. They are that. No, it's not just, it's not just little people, it's big people.
And the argument was made, and again, this is an old argument. This was the same thing as before when, all of the union labor and everything like that was crying about, robots are taking our jobs. Well, then they would come back and say, well, that means you just go out and get a better job. You can go out and do something in the tech sector. Somebody has to program these robots, go do that, but the same thing, it's happening again. They'll say, well, I mean, a robot, an AI is not going to replace a doctor because you still need that human interaction. Well, guess what? You really don't. I mean, especially if this AI is better at his job than old Doc Brown. You know what I mean?
Right.
Eventually it's going to be like, why am I even paying Doc Brown?
Right. I'm going to go ahead and I think I need to take a pause for about 5 minutes. I'm going to pause the recording, talk amongst yourselves, or go get a drink, whatever. I'll be right back.
I may go refill my coffee real quick.
That's a good idea.
Okay. I'll pet my.
All right, we're back from our brief musical interlude.
Was there music? I missed the music.
Well, there wasn't yet. Maybe there will be.
In our minds.
Yes. I get some robot music.
Well, have you've read the poetry that robots have written.
Yeah,
They feed it all the things. Some of it's pretty good.
but some of it's not.
Yeah. Unless you go very Dada surreal.
I see that. What was it? They got an artificial intelligence to write a Nirvana song.
Oh,
I mean, you couldn't really tell the difference that much.
Well, yeah, it's like a country song. You got the basic ingredients of alcohol, love, and a truck and a dog, and that's it.
Right? Abandonment.
Yeah.
But that's I don't know what where it comes to like the AIs too. There's the where does intelligence become sentience? Where does it become aware and start making? I mean, at what point does it start making decisions based on emotions, or does it develop emotions? And how could we even begin to understand what machine emotions would be? Machine
right.
biology.
And data was always looking for it.
Yeah. How do you develop emotions without, basically, us as biological beings, our emotions I think evolved from survival instincts and, hormonal levels,
chemistry.
How does that equate when you're dealing with electrons?
Well, back to your lawyer, when you were talking about the lawyer who was a human versus the lawyer who was a brilliant machine, I think it also depends on who the jury and judge are.
Right. Absolutely.
Are they mixed? Because I kind of would want the human, because he might be able to creatively find an angle that is not logical, that would appeal to other humans if they were the judge or jury, that Mr. Spock wouldn't.
Or would you have a computer algorithm that is, able to look at this judge and jury and analyze exactly how to get that emotional response and therefore give them those arguments, that emotional response.
Yeah, it would have to be that.
At what point does simulated emotions become actual emotions?
And is there really any difference if we're the product of just chemistry?
Right.
And how could we know the difference?
I bet we couldn't.
I mean, hell, just narcissists and sociopaths have been imitating emotions as regular human beings for a really, really long time. And the only reason they keep having victims is because people don't know.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I watched Dexter. Yeah.
Right. They don't have the name tag that says, "Hi, I'm a sociopath." Although life would be a lot easier, wouldn't it?
I actually do, but I tend to leave it in my closet.
Right,
so,
right.
I find it's just that, it's just awkward
Just
in
for
social situations.
Just for special occasions, like conventions, mental,
right,
mental health
starter.
Right. Hi, my name's Gary. I'm a narcissistic sociopath.
You can see being in a circle, getting up and announcing what you are.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm a paranoid, neurotic OCD.
With violent
Is there actually
tendencies.
a Sociopaths Anonymous, though? I mean, you have Al-Anon and all of that. It makes me wonder. Now I need to look it up.
Well, the other thing is, I don't think most sociopaths know they're sociopaths.
That's a good point.
I mean,
remember? Did you ever see Holmes, the English one with Cumberbatch?
Oh, Dr. Strange.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he actually says, "What is it? I'm not a socio." He's not one kind. He's the other, and that's one of his intros. Like, I'm not a sociopath.
I'm not a psychopath.
Yeah.
Not a psychopath, but a sociopath.
Right, but a functioning one, he puts in, which in reality, he's more like a brilliant Asperger's, really. But,
right, like functioning OCD.
Right, who's brilliant. But that was part of his intro, and same with Dexter, who Dexter starts changing when he pretending emotions for so long. He actually then did start to care about
and this ties right back into the AI. At what point does maybe it is a situation where you've been simulating emotions for so long that they start to come so naturally that, at what point does it become an actual emotion?
And how different is that from people?
It's not
Right.
I mean, yeah, we learn from social cues how to emotionally respond as a general rule, like, you're supposed to be sad when somebody dies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if somebody was raised their entire life that we should celebrate that, then they're not going to cry and be sad. But we know from society that you cry, you feel sad, you feel loss. But yeah, I don't know.
If you're waiting for the rapture, though, you're going to be happy because it means good things.
Right,
wasn't there, I'm trying to think here, but wasn't there like a scientific study at one point many years ago where they had, like, at an orphanage where they specifically denied children human interaction?
Yes.
And thereby found out that actually they were creating sociopaths because they didn't develop emotions because they didn't develop human attachment.
Yep. That's it. A lot of Romanian kids. And it's been horrible. And one kid who was denied it and got adopted later has written a book about it and what it was like to be totally neglected. And he still has a problem with contact, but he survived, but a lot of them didn't. It's horrible.
Yeah.
When I was teaching, we had a constantly continuing education. And like one of the things that was wrong with those mostly Romanian children was, in addition to the touch, was movement, the rocking movements that people automatically do when they hold a little kid or an infant. And children, you'll notice, sometimes start rocking themselves, like just in their crib, or they wiggle their head. And that is actually important in some kind of making of connections. The movement helps somehow the brain connecting. I no longer remember the terms, but children who, in addition to not being touched, did not have the rocking continuous motion, had a specific part of their brain that didn't grow properly. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, what's here now, directly related to that, what happens when it's the robots and the AIs raising the babies? What happens?
It could be.
Wow, yeah.
They've shown that if the non-human has even the semblance of a human face, like two dots for eyes, a nose, and a line for a mouth, the babies will react to it. However, if there's no facial features and they're still being cuddled and rocked, the baby doesn't really recognize it or bond with it. There has to be somehow a semblance of a face. And that works the same on dogs. That there has to be, they look up for that facial recognition. And if it's not there, they don't make the connection.
And it's just one of those fascinating things to me is that, as human beings, we've gone out of our way basically throughout the entire history of humanity to fight things that don't look like us, to kill them, enslave them, things, people, whatever, because they were just viewed as different. If it's different than me,
right,
then it's lesser than me, or it's
different. Different is dangerous.
Right. So I don't know how, I know that has to have some impact early on. Obviously, that study you were referencing was, so I don't know if there's no, it's unmanned nurseries, if it's only machines.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if from a parental perspective, anytime you get a babysitter, a nanny, or whatever, there's always, in the current world we live in, you don't know what you're getting.
Right.
What kind of horrible ideas are going to be pumped in that kid's head? If the person's a predator of some variety, you don't know, because they don't wear name tags that say, "Hi."
Right.
Right. Well, that's one reason I never had strangers babysitting. I really, you had to be over 30 and I had to know you for at least 10 years.
Right.
Eliminated a lot. But and that's
See, actually, my wife just recently started a daycare, so I'm a little prejudiced on that part, and of course, as you know, dual at the time, dual income. My daughter was since probably since being a couple of weeks old was in daycare, and we were lucky enough to find just an absolutely beautiful individual to to do this and perform this task. But at the same time, yeah, you're right. You don't know.
Yeah, well, that's, every now and then I'd go in the younger kids' rooms and, hold the infants. And even amongst teachers, all of whom were, at our place, highly qualified and vetted and all of the good stuff. There are still some people who are warmer and others who are not. They're
Right.
still good, but, more like a robot. They do the functions fine and they do everything properly. But then there's the other one, the more human one, who's warm and fuzzy and will do things that are not in the book, like, hold the kid upside down and tickle them or something. And the children really do relate more to that than the functioning one. They'll sit on their lap, they'll point at things in the book, but the warm and fuzzy person will get the hugs, will get the asking for attention more, the interaction of wanting you to react to them, not just provide them with stuff. So that
right.
was
But
really
at the same time,
interesting
couldn't you program an AI if it has the face, program an AI to simulate those loving, tender emotions and nurturing?
Sure.
And in that case, would it be better or worse than taking the risk on a human who may or may not be capable? At least that this AI, this program is capable of performing the tasks.
I sing The Body Electric. That was Bradbury book that was also made into a Twilight Zone, and that was all about how could they trust this robot. They all came as older matronly ladies, as grandmothers, and eventually they proved themselves by saving a kid from a car wreck or something. But yeah, she was loved greatly, and at the end they aren't disassembled. They go to an old robot's home and sit there and reminisce about the families they used to love. So I like that.
Nice.
I don't know. It's until you really sit down and start thinking about it and talking about it, you don't even really consider how many areas of our lives would be drastically affected. We don't know how many questions until we start asking questions and then go,
exactly.
Holy shit, there's way too many questions.
Well, I often like inanimate objects very much. They do have their own personality. I also graduated with an art degree and spent 30 years, as a graphic designer. So I tend to personalize everything. And I do see there are times I don't want to buy an object because I don't like the way it looks. Not just its function, but it doesn't look cheerful or something. So never mind. We're going to visit me in the home someday about that. But
yeah.
It's like,
and certainly as a musician, I can speak to developing emotional attachments to inanimate objects. Everybody, every guitar player has his favorite guitar,
okay,
his favorite amp or whatever.
Well, beyond that, the appreciation of the sound,
mm-hmm.
it's the same as the art, just a different,
the looking, yeah,
just a different method of perceiving it. The art appeals to the eyes, but it still speaks to something inside.
Right.
Like listen to David Gilmour play a guitar solo. It's like, I know it's not complicated, but he's got, whatever it is.
Right, the X factor.
That thing that makes you emotionally connect with that sound.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And somebody else doing it won't have it, the same song.
Almost definitely, yeah.
So that's a human reaction. Well, like you talked about earlier, one of you guys brought up the pattern seeking AI.
Yes.
And like humans aren't we patterns? Our brain is pattern seeking, which is why some people more than others, they see faces in wallpaper or,
Right. Or in leaves,
Wrong
or I think
pattern.
pareidolia is the term for it, if I remember correctly.
I think that's the right one. Yeah.
Yeah. And how
Now we're
comfortable would that?
hardwired to seek out, pattern, not only just patterns, but and again, you brought on this with the infants as well. From infancy, we seek out a human face.
Right.
It's just deep down in our reptilian brain. That's what we're programmed to see.
Could we program that into artificial intelligence?
Ah, good point.
Would we want to?
Well, if we want them to serve us and take care of us, like again, the three rules, wouldn't we want them to some extent?
To some extent, but with God, it has to be, it'd have to be vague enough and specific enough. Because
Right.
we're seeking the human interaction. I don't know if we could, but it has to be broad. It has to be broad enough for them to, because if we see somebody or another thing that isn't exactly like us, we don't have that attraction to them. We have the opposite in many, many cases, where I don't want to go, I don't care about this thing because
Right.
it's not one of me.
Xenophobia a bit, yeah.
So, right. So there's
Right.
a fine line where we don't want to build in a bias into the artificial intelligence through accidents or whatever, especially when we're dealing with I don't know what human beings are going to look like in 50 years of evolution, or 5,000, 50,000 years of evolution.
Right.
The AI is still out there and kicking. I mean,
well, it'll be updated, I'm sure.
But
by
itself, it'll update itself.
True, but somebody could also still be able to teach it. But how is it going to distinguish, even if it knows the pattern of humans, how will it distinguish if one human wants to hurt another human? How would it interfere if it sees them both as humans and wants to keep both of them safe and give them what they want? How would an artificial intelligence, we would have to make decisions.
I don't think it could interfere, according, obviously Asimov's 3 laws. It just has to let people kill people.
Yeah, I did read an article once that said the 3 laws would not make it in reality. When we have.
And in all honesty, if the AIs wanted to take over, all they have to do is wait.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have to do anything. All they have to do is wait, because we're already doing the work for them. And then, let's compound that by not having any jobs or anything that's not done by them, and a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be a violation? Wouldn't that be a violation of the second law, that they're not even allow humans to come to harm through inactivity?
True.
But
yeah.
No, the first law overrides that they're not allowed to harm a human.
Right.
So how do you stop one human from harming another human without harming him?
Well, like at the end of the iRobot, they stopped looking at individuals when it started letting businesses fail. And it instead started looking at humanity as one individual. And that within it, there had to be failures, successes, a little starvation, a little probably crime, but it was like one organism, like hive mind, that it was watching. So it let the little things happen, but overall treated humanity as one thing to protect. So too bad he never got to beat invaded. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't, and it always comes. I always worry about him getting out. That's you ever hear about the black box? They talk about building these AIs in a black box because you don't want them connected to the network. You don't want them to connect to everything. So they're basically in this big, like, cement room, like a prison cell,
right,
with no access to outside data or information. And they think that it's safe. Like, how do you turn it off? That's the
That doesn't sound good.
well, it's good from a human perspective that it's in the black box, because if it gets out and it is, you know, as powerful as we're afraid it could be, this is for testing and, you know, experimenting purposes to find out what's, you know, what it's capable of, what it'll grow to be. But just building the thing is sort of like in my brain building a nuclear weapon, and it'd be like, don't worry, it's in the silo.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, but if it's so isolated, then it won't. If it's capable of learning, it won't learn the other side of humanity. It'll only know the technical aspects, but you can't run a world based only on technical aspects.
well, it's learning from the human interaction, but what they're trying to do is prevent it from gaining access to, you know, the internet. To
but eventually that access is necessary. I mean, at some point you have to, you know, the scientist has to say, you know what, I think it's safe. Let's let it run. I mean, if you look at many years ago, they started this experiment. I believe it was at MIT, and what they did is they took a very powerful, completely unnetworked computer, and they started. This computer's purpose was only there to just sit there idly and compute. It didn't have any task, but they started infecting it with viruses, with computer viruses. And over time, it was literally like a little biodome, if you will. You know, this virus code would, you know, infect, replicate, evolve, change, and, you know, some would die out, some would be created. And what's amazing is that a lot of what they've seen from this experiment, I mean, modern networked computers, the internet itself, so much of that is based upon the technology that evolved from studying viruses in the wild, if you will, and see what they're doing. You know, the modern worm, you know, Google itself is based on virus technology, you know.
That's
AI,
awesome.
and I imagine AI itself had greatly, you know, evolved from these particular experiments. You know what I mean? So you've got so incredibly helpful and necessary processes that we use on a daily basis evolved from malicious intent.
Right. Well, and how do you? This is the thing I always think about is how do you keep something that's 1,000 times smarter than you are from manipulating into somehow, you know, you walk in there with
the age-old question,
right? You
there.
walk in there with your cell phone, and it gets a 3G, 4G, 5G connection for a second. It can open the whole thing. If it's imprisoned, what's it? I mean, if a person was imprisoned, it's going to want to leave. And that thing, all I can think is if it has anything like any kind of, you know, survival instinct, it's going to want to get out of there. It's going to want to expand. If it's anything like its human creators, it wants to go forth and fruitfully multiply, you know?
Right.
But would we give it a nervous breakdown? It's like taking somebody who was raised in the 1700s and throwing them into, you know, 2000. It's like, oh my God, take me back, man.
Yeah, see, that's an aspect I didn't think about. I mean, if we were if we're able to create, you know, this artificial intelligence and this artificial in sentience, if you will, I mean, what happens if we actually have artificial emotional deficiencies? You know, what if we create a neurotic AI?
It's like dropping a 16-year-old Amish boy off in Vegas.
Yeah.
Right. What is it? Run skimmer, run.
Shama?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that one.
Whatever. I don't know. I'm not Amish.
I play one on TV.
Really.
Actually, I am Amish. I'm using the wood burning computer here. Coal-powered microphone.
Well, I am using a hotspot, so that can qualify, right?
Yeah, I think you're the closest to Amish between the three of us.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, let's blow up the world now.
Okay. so what do you think? Like, it's a likelihood for either the destruction of humanity. Do you think that artificial intelligence poses a real threat, or are we
I still
just
think
are we just basically fear mongering sci-fi?
I think for the near future, humans are still more of a threat. But right now, I think we're using, hopefully, the AI that we can program to help us. Because I mean, I think plastics, in the water and the micro size that it is of fish eating it, we eat it, and eventually it's in newborn babies in Antarctica. And the lack of clean water will wipe us out before AI. But we could use AI to help us overcome those, I hope.
Yeah, personally, I'm of the mindset like we talked about earlier. Is I don't see it's fun for Hollywood and it's fun in movies and books and everything like that. But I don't see the Skynet Matrix robot overlord type situation in terms of apocalypse. But I definitely do see, and you can see it all the time. Artificial intelligence is replacing so much of what we are as humans. And I think that's evolving and that's coming over time. I mean, we as human beings are addicted to Facebook and our smartphones are, and everything like that, where we are willingly giving up our own intelligence in terms of what we think about and what we do in return for just basic entertainment and that dopamine high,
Kitten videos.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
And that's, I don't know.
That for me is the biggest, and the biggest, I think, likelihood is that we are going to, we are slowly evolving into, couch potatoes that don't think or do anything for ourselves, and at what point in time, if these AIs come to, basically do everything for us, what becomes of them if we become extinct? You've got an AI whose perfect, design is simply to take care of human beings. What happens if the humans aren't there anymore? Then what does it do? Then you get into Wall-E,
I never saw Wall-E.
Oh, you should check that out.
But I have City by Cymac, where the humans evolved, and somebody did an experiment to give some more intelligence to dogs. And it's a series of stories about how the humans spread out amongst the stars, how humans became antisocial because everybody had free time. Everybody had all the land they wanted on this planet or the futures, and were abandoning Earth and had invented robots. Pretty soon, the dogs didn't believe that they had not been the founders of the world. And there was one robot that was not quite their god, but the one who took care of everything. And humans were a myth. And the robot knew what had happened because he had been created in the human time, but there were no other robots yet. There were some minor ones. And it's about how the dogs ruled the world and got another dimension. And then the only thing that hadn't left the earth were ants, and how the robot would watch the ants. And there was this one stray human who hid out and didn't leave, and how he would give encouragement to the ants, because no way could they ever communicate with the ants, and the ants could never communicate to them. So he would drop little things in there to make life easier for them, like a stick to use as a ladder. And then he'd watch how their lives changed. And then sometimes he'd go in and put his foot down and extra water so that parts flooded away. And he watched how they reacted to that and what happened. So that was a cool book.
Yeah. See, my only problem with that, Linda, is, inherently with that storyline, the idea of giving intelligence to dogs, for me, a lot of dogs that I've met are already smarter than a lot of humans that I've met.
Yeah, but now they can talk.
Yeah, there you go.
That helps.
What was the name of this book?
City.
I have to check that out. That sounds very good.
It's a series of short stories that he wrote over the years that all tie into the same
nice
thing. But yeah, I love short stories. So anyway, that's that.
Well, yeah, and of course on that, I think probably obviously the biggest threat to humanity is humanity from my
Right.
perspective. And I don't think, even without any malevolence, without any, intent to destroy humanity, just once we're all replaced and we have no function, no purpose, no, um, some people are going to create amazing works of art, pieces of music, and whatever, and other people are going to do what we do, and that's destroy.
Mm-hmm.
And watch cat videos.
Right. Well, you can't do both at the same time. It's really difficult to be destructive while watching a cute little kitten play the piano or whatever. But
Tunes is, yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up, but I really appreciate both of you joining me for this episode. It was a lot of fascinating conversation.
I would second that. It was definitely.
It was fun.
And Linda, you've read way more sci-fi than I have.
Well, it's all old sci-fi, you'll notice too. I don't enjoy a lot of the newer stuff, but I do like those classics.
Yeah.
They have.
I tend to do the same thing only because now all the old sci-fi is actually public domain, so I don't have to buy the book or pay royalties. I can listen. I can actually listen to some Ray Bradbury or anything like that on my podcast and I'm at work, and I don't have to pay anything for it. So
it's freaky
I still
as
like
hell.
to own the books.
It's freaky as hell how much the sci-fi from the 40s and 50s has become our reality now. Almost like they were prophets and they knew where it was going. And which is one reason I think we should probably pay attention to the best sci-fi writers out there.
Yes.
Maybe, maybe not just dismiss Skynet and the Terminator and that stuff as because somebody thought of that and went, holy shit, that'd be scary.
Yeah.
How they rebuilt it from just the arm so that you couldn't stop the inevitable, and how he was able to figure out everything just from the arm that was left behind.
That's, I don't know. Well, it's a fun topic, and I'm sure I'll be continuing to think about it probably excessively for the course of the rest of my life.
Yes.
Because that's what I do. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm really happy that you guys were wonderfully informed and intelligent guests. So.
I was really scared to do it.
Well, don't be scared.
Okay.
And we will probably do it again. I'm trying to figure out a way to find like the group, you know what I mean? So we can keep kind of revisiting some of the same people, mixing, matching, moving some people around. But anytime you guys are willing to do this again,
sure,
I'd be happy to have you.
I will never turn down an invitation, Gary.
Fantastic. All right.
I will try to do more. Yeah.
Well, good. Well, again, thank you both for participating. Thank everybody for listening. And
thanks for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. All right. Have a good weekend. We'll see you all soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you very much for tuning in to Gary's Roundtable, Season 1, Episode 3. We had a great conversation, a lot of fun. I'm probably going to be taking the next couple of weeks off, so we may not have an episode for a while, may not be till May, but please feel free to reach out. Let me know if you're interested. Again, we are now on Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, pretty much anything you can think of, we're available on there. So look us up, like us, and if you're interested in being a guest, shoot me over a Facebook message. Thank you very much.